What is up, everybody? Joe Everett, the fence expert, coming in for our second YouTube Live question and answers segment with you guys. Glad to have you guys back. So we've got kind of like the format we did last time was we've got a series of, let's see, 6 different questions that we've pulled off of either the communities tab where, I went in and I asked what questions you guys might have. Whether it's there, whether it's our Facebook group. So we do have a Facebook page for Joe Everest, the fence expert. It is facebook.com/The Real Joe Everest. It's a guy dressed in orange that looks a lot like me. So we asked it there. So we came up with 6 questions. We also pulled them off of frequently asked questions from the videos that we see that seem relevant to a Q&A style video format. So we'll let a few of you guys trickle in here. So it looks like there's 3 of you in here. So YouTube actually, it shows me how many people are in, but it doesn't show me who's in. So as you guys come in, why don't you give me a hi or a wave or something so I'll know who's here, and I'll welcome you to the YouTube Q&A series. All right. So also with me is Jeremy. Jeremy's got all the questions. Jeremy, what do you think we ought to start off with? Should we start off with questions, or should we just jump into the situation of the lumber?
I think start with the lumber.
Start with lumber?
People kind of gather in the
I'm with you.
chat room
I'm with you. All right. So we're going to start off with just kind of the general state of lumber. If you guys are, those of you that are here, if you're in the fencing industry, or if you've been to a lumber warehouse, home improvement store lately, you'll know it's kind of the same. We're in a similar situation that we've been in last month, in that we're still seeing some materials trickle in. So I kind of, knowing that this was going to be the subject of today's YouTube, I made the rounds yesterday to the home improvement stores, just seeing who had what and what the inventories look like. Inventory is still low. I mean, it's not out. So, one store had 50 pickets and a couple hundred 2x4s and some 4x4x8 treated pine posts. Now, let me tell you, the few 4x4x8 treated pine posts were awfully rough. They were looking pretty bad. But so supply is there somewhat. Now, there weren't enough pickets. You would have had to go to 3 or 4 of these stores to get enough pickets for a full job. They still don't have that. Now, like I said, the 2x4s, I did see 2x4 selection was pretty decent, as far as being straight and true. Now, it's still number 2 grade. It's all treated pine. It's still number 2 grade. So you're still not seeing the number 1 grade show up in the home improvement stores. But now, so while it's showing up, the price of this stuff is wild. It's $18, $19, $20 for a 4x4x8 treated pine post. I think it was 19 and change at one particular store. They're all kind of in that 18 to 20 range, which is fairly wild, considering that typically that's about the price of a steel post. We prefer the Postmaster, but there's also the lifetime post in the market, or just a regular round, galvanized steel post, Schedule 40s or something to the like. They're all kind of right around in that price range, which begs the question: who's installing 4x4x8 treated pine posts when you can buy a steel post for the same money? Well, I guess you could probably see it in deck building. I get it, but as far as fencing goes, why anyone's using treated pine post is beyond me. Yeah, at that price, when you can buy steel for the same money, steel has a lifetime warranty. Of course, it's wind load rated for 72 miles an hour. There's an interesting study done where it compared the wind load rating of wood and round steel and Postmaster post. Don't quote me on this exactly, but the wood post was something like 40 to 50 miles an hour, whereas a steel post, the round steel post, was like at 70 and Postmaster was at 72, I think. So, to be charging the same money for a product that's significantly lower quality doesn't make a lot of sense. But I'm sure if you ask the mill, it's all about supply and demand, and they're just charging according to their supply. All right, so Jacob King says, a couple weeks ago we went scuba diving at Beaver Lake and then ended up driving around up to Highlandville, I think. Very cool, Jacob. You're right around in our neck of the woods. All right, Brent Midge is with us. Good morning, Brent. I've known Brent for 5 or 6 years. Great guy. He's a California guy. And he's got the lobster opener coming up. So good luck with that, Brent. Let's see. Joey Hendricks says, good morning. Good morning, Joey. Fry Fence and Landscaping. I've had customers prefer wood post even after suggested steel post. They claim it looks better. I don't know. Agree to disagree on that. The steel post, the Postmaster are hidden. You don't actually see your posts anymore. It's not like the round steel post where you do see them sticking out. I just have a hard time even offering it. It's a lower quality. I mean, I guess technically it's better for the fencer because you're going to be replacing that post in 8 to 10 years, whereas the steel post, you're not replacing them. So better for the fence guy, I guess, for long-term replacement, but I don't know. I'd have a hard time with it. All right. So basically, like I said, State of Lumber it's available, but the pricing is pretty wild right now. We're seeing that in Cedar as well. So we were placing an order for some materials this morning with our Cedar wholesaler. And of course, Cedar pickets have gone up. They've gone up from $3 to $3.40 a picket. Same thing, 2x4/8 rough sawn cedar. They've gone from 8 to 9.20 or 9.30. So cedar materials are getting more expensive too, and they're also less available. The reason he had called me was they had pickets on the ground. They had a train car load of pickets and want to know what all we wanted of that. But then so we ordered a truckload of pickets, right? And I said, well, all right, so what do you have for 2x4s? We're going to need some 2x4s to hang these pickets on. And the answer was, oh, well, we don't have 2x4s. The 2x4s, they'll be in, looks like middle of next month, which means we're going to have a lot of pickets and they're going to be held up by hopes and dreams, apparently. Well, luckily we've got enough 2x4s to hold us through, but it's wild to think that these mills, for whatever reason, can't seem to keep up with the supply, either in treated pine or in cedar. We were talking 2 weekends ago. I was in Nashville speaking at a conference, and there was a guy named Ruben Borg, has Ruben Borg Fence just outside San Francisco over in California, and they deal in redwood almost exclusively, it sounds like, and they're having the same issue with redwood. He says, I take whatever they can give me, and then he grades it out there in house. So it's whether it's treated pine or cedar, redwood, you're seeing this across the board. The mills just simply can't keep up. We placed an aluminum order this morning, a pretty substantial aluminum order, and what's usually 5 to 6 weeks is now 8 to 10 weeks. We don't do a lot of vinyl, but when we bid out a few vinyl projects, they're kind of saying the same thing is, it's 8 to 10 weeks, as long as it's white and as long as it's a standard style. Anything, custom colors, custom designs, they're not even bidding it. We had a customer that wanted almond, and the supplier says, well, I'll bid you white, but I can't bid almond just because I don't know when I'll get it in. So supply is still tight. So, all right. So Joey Hendricks is in Central Arkansas. Our brothers to the south. Okay. Fry Fence says it's hard for me to get the Master Halco post. We have to use the round steel post. Yeah. So if you're using round steel, I could see the customer's complaint that round steel doesn't look as good as a wood post. A wood post looking more natural than the round steel. Of course, with the round steel, you have the brackets as well. I've seen guys box those in. So use coal pickets, cut down to the correct size and box those in. And then toenail them, I guess, to the 2x4s. Decent look, but you definitely know it's there. Oh, Brent says, I've been using the foam cement. It works pretty good. Let's see, Brent's just stirring the pot here. That's what Brent likes to do, is just jump in the comments and stir the pot. You've watched my foam videos. You and I have talked about my thoughts on foam. If you guys haven't seen the video on foam, go back and watch it. The Cliff Notes version being, it didn't work out well for us, for our particular soil. I think it had misted that day, so the soil may have been a little damp. The foam, it constricted, or it tightened up. It shrank. There you go. So to where the post just wasn't held solid in the hole at all. Didn't work out well for us. Hey, Roger, how are you? Roger was here at our inaugural YouTube live. Welcome back. Okay, so Jeremy asks, have you ever heard of the post protector that helps prevent post rot? So this is probably the Post Saver product. It's put out by Fence Armor. So yeah, I've seen it. Actually, so I talked while we were in Nashville. I talked quite a bit with Ruben. Ruben sells the post sleeves, the Post Saver sleeves. He likes them a lot. And so what it is it's a uh, rubber type sleeve that goes over the post, and then it's heat shrank onto the post, so it adheres to the post. And there's an aerobic zone of the soil that microbes live in that typically want to get into the wood that cause rot, that sort of thing. So the post saver sleeve is deep enough to get under the aerobic zone, but it's also tall enough to where it sticks up out of the ground to get above the aerobic zone. So it prevents rot. And from what I hear, from everything I hear, it's a great product. I haven't personally used it just because we don't install wood posts. But if you guys are using wood post, it probably makes sense to do some research of your own, just because I haven't used it. I don't have personal experience with it. But in speaking with Ruben Borg, who uses it a lot, he sells a ton of these sleeves because he personally has seen the results. He believes in it. When that guy says it's a good idea, it's usually a good idea to listen to him and at least do some research. So Post Saver, they're manufactured by Fence Armor. They've got distributors here in the United States. I believe they're a Canadian company, but absolutely worth a look into. All right, Forrest is with us. So thanks for the videos. Going to be attempting first time putting up a fence and gate soon. Best of luck, Forrest. Hey, if you've watched some of our videos and you have some questions, drop them in the comments here. I'd be happy to help you as much as I can. Or, of course, you can drop your questions or comments in each video's comments. I get notified on my phone as you guys have leave comments, and as I can, I scroll through there and answer them as quickly as possible. All right, Fry Fence hasn't used the foam cement. We had quick rock to fast set cement, typically ready to use in less than an hour or so. Yeah, so fast setting cement's always a good idea. It's quite a bit stronger. So we did the foam video just as a test. We get a lot of questions about it. So I thought, why not test the product and just get some real world firsthand knowledge? I mean, the foam product is a great concept. I mean, it's light, so you're not hucking around 80-pound bags of Quikrete, or if it's fast set, 2 60-pound bags to each hole. You're not worried about the concrete dust getting everywhere, rinsing it off, that sort of thing. So it's a great concept. You don't have to worry about water. So sometimes we'll get on construction sites that don't have water readily available. If it's, say, a large commercial project, typically most all residential projects have water available. But if it's a big commercial project, there's no water. So then it's coordinating the ready mix trucks to come in. But what happens if the ready mix truck can't get to the area that has the post? Typically, fences aren't put in very handy spots. They're typically around the perimeter, and they're wherever the perimeter happens to be, through the woods, through a creek, whatever. Anyway, the fence, the foam, obviously you wouldn't use foam in a creek either, but on the other side of that creek, it's a pain to get semen over there. Anyway, great concept. The product that we tested, which was Sika, just really didn't perform well at all. That being said, here in a few weeks, we are planning on doing a follow-up test with a couple additional brands of the expanding foam product. Also, we're going to try to do like a 4-in-1 video series while we're out there. Take advantage of the situation where we're also going to do a layout video, how we lay out the fence, a couple different methods on laying it out. Also, showing it with a regular string line, but then also we bought some tools from Mr. Fence Tools. I've watched a lot of his videos. I've talked to Sean a couple times just about the tools themselves. Called him up. Great guy. He answered all of my questions, whether they made sense or not. So anyway, bought a few tools from him to show how you could do it using a string line and measuring tape. He has a tool for laying out fence. We're going to showcase that as well. Then also how you would string up or lay out your stringers, spacing them out evenly, that sort of thing. And then what else are we going to do, Jeremy? We're going to show nailing up picket fence and shadow box fence. We'll probably turn a corner, because one of the questions I get a couple times in the comments of the Postmaster videos is, what do you do when you come to corners? So we'll go ahead and showcase that. Also, the terrain isn't flat, so there's a slope to it. So we'll be able to showcase nailing pickets on a slope. That was one of the biggest points of feedback on the fence layout video, was why we didn't do it on site. So we're going to do it on site. Anyway, so that's coming up in a few weeks. So that'll be nice. But yeah, so we'll show you guys tools of the trade that I found. You know, the Mr. Fence tools, if you guys want to look up that guy, Sean, great guy. He makes good tools. I think I should probably take a moment to say I don't get compensated, you know, making these references. You know, we've got a video coming out. One of the questions we had gotten a lot was the gate hardware. The steel frame, steel post, the hardware we use for it, maybe going more in depth on the hardware. So we shot a video. And one of the things I said in the beginning of the video is I'm always going to be forthright with you guys. If it's a sponsored video or if I receive compensation from the sales of the products I'm recommending, I want to be as transparent as possible with that. So before I do that, I'll obviously pause and let you guys know exactly what the situation is. But with Mr. Fence Tools, I don't receive any compensation, but Sean, they're from a company that installs a significant amount of fence. And Sean spent a lot of time with his guys figuring out tools that work for his company and then making them for other fence companies. They're tools that make sense. They're well built. I like them. So you guys check those out before the video comes out, get an idea of what we're going to be using. All right, David Neely's with us. He's in Newark, Ohio. Welcome, David. Really appreciate your very informative videos. Well, David, we appreciate you being here. You know, the guys and gals showing up, asking me questions are the reason we do this. I appreciate you coming on in. Joey Hendricks, looking forward to it and going to get back to work. Awesome. Sounds good. Sounds good. Hey, guys, one thing real quick. So I've got some questions up here on the board. Of course, as questions come in the comments, we'll address those as well. We're going to limit this to 1 hour. If you guys were in the YouTube live last time, how long did that go, Jeremy? 2 hours, 2.5 hours, something? Yeah, it went for a while. It was right around that 2 hour mark somewhere. We're going to cap it in an hour. So from 11 to 12 Central. So right now, Jeremy's keeping me apprised. We've got 45 minutes left. So I'm going to keep checking in, see if you guys have questions. If not, we've got some printed questions here from comments in various places. I'll tell you guys, so those of you guys joining up recently, so here's where we get our questions for the Q&A is first and foremost in the comments. So I've always got my computer up, checking them out. So if you've got a comment or a question, drop it in the comments. I'll answer it as it comes up. Also in our YouTube communities tab, I jump in there and let you guys know when we're coming up with a Q&A, ask you guys for any questions for those that aren't able to join in the broadcast. And so I can answer it, and then you guys can watch them on the replay. Also, we have a Facebook page for Joe Everest, the fence expert. It is facebook.com/The Real Joe Everest. You can click on there, follow the page if you feel so inclined, but also drop comments, questions, that sort of thing in the Facebook page. So Jeremy scoured all three of those places and came up with a pretty good list of questions. So, all right. So not seeing any in the comments. We'll start off with Rich Bentley. Is a lumber shortage ever going to end? I'm a new fence business and won't make it to the end of the season. So actually, we probably already answered Rich's question. Well, I guess not. So currently the situation isn't great as far as supply. Supply is there, but the price is just astronomical when it is available. Rich, both the treated pine wholesaler, I asked some of the lumber supply stores I was around, and of course they weren't really sure. You know, they knew when they would be getting trucks. They thought they knew when they'd be getting trucks, but they didn't really have any idea when it'd be over. The wholesalers are probably one step closer to the lumber mills, which ultimately are forecasting out their production. And the wholesalers are saying, you know, probably through first quarter of next year, probably through first part of next year, just as, you know, hurricane damage is being assessed and is being taken care of, obviously lumber is going towards that. Now, I understand that fence pickets aren't going to that, but the raw material is being cut more for, you know, dimensional lumber being used in hurricane repairs and hurricane preparation as more show up and less is available to make fence pickets. So at least to the end of the year, but so new fence business and won't make it to the end of the season. I mean, honestly, Rich, you just have to charge accordingly based on the prices that are available. So right now we're only able to give 7-day guaranteed pricing on our fence proposals, when it used to be we could give 30-day guarantees on the pricing, but the the pricing is changing so quickly and so drastically that we had to bring it back to 7 days. As long as you're charging accordingly based on what material is costing you, this shouldn't impact your companies in a financial way. Now, if the material's not available and you simply don't have fence to build, that could obviously play a part in it. But from what I've seen, of course, here locally in Southwest Missouri, the materials are there. Now, you might have to source it. If you're sourcing it from a home improvement store, you might have to use 2 or 3, 4 different stores to try to pull from. Or if you have access to wholesalers, typically they can get it. It's just dealing with the pricing. So, my biggest piece of advice, Rich, would be just price it accordingly. And we won't be building fence for what we built it for per foot 6 months ago. We simply can't. The price of materials has gone up significantly in the last 6 months. You just have to charge accordingly. All right, looks like we've got a few comments. Outdoors of Eden says, building a goat shelter now, and the post setting videos were very useful. Awesome. Always happy to help. I'm glad you said that, because never in a million years, Jeremy, would I have thought we could help somebody build a goat shelter. I love that I'm able to help you. I've never thought that would be possible, but there you go. You're very welcome. This is why I do it, guys, is to try to help you guys, try to help the future you guys, the folks that haven't found the channel yet. If I can help somebody in a little way, then that made this whole thing worthwhile. Brent says, I really enjoyed watching you grow on YouTube. Seems like you had a burst of viewers and subscribers. Must be a lot of people building fences. Yeah, that's absolutely true, Brent. So the video that really kind of launched the channel was the post foam video. We had done some videos before that got decent viewers, and we got decent comments and all that. But I tell you what, something about the YouTube algorithm is the word I'm looking for. Latched onto that foam video, the initial post foam video, and just sent it to orbit. And that's really why the channel is where it is right now. But yeah, so YouTube has done a great job. The algorithm's done a great job about putting us in front of viewers like you guys.
You had a question right before the goats one.
I missed a question. All right. From Fry?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fry Fence says, I'm looking at start using the metal frames for wood fence gates. How do you typically attach the wood rails 2x4s to the steel frame? So what we on the gate post, those are still round posts. So we don't use Postmaster post for the gate frames. We use a standard round. We use CS40. You could certainly use Schedule 40 post for the hinges, and then the brackets to attach the 2x4s to the post. So similar to what you're probably already using when you're using steel post. Simpson brackets are available. I'm not a huge fan. A lot of guys use them. A lot of guys like them. I don't particularly enjoy them. So we use a solid wood to steel bracket, 4-hole. That way your 2x4 can go past your post, can cover up the hinge a little bit. We've actually have a video coming out. Jeremy, when's that video? The steel gate frame video? Next Wednesday, yeah. So next week, the video coming out will be how we install the gate frames and the steel gate post. The hardware is called Shark Hardware. Again, not promoting it. I don't get any money from telling you guys about them, but it's a good product. Shark Hardware. So Shark hinges, Shark latches. Forney Fence out of Texas sells them. They're the guys that make them and sell them. So, yeah, Shark Hardware. I like it a lot. Did that answer the question? Yeah. So we just use standard brackets. All right. Should you ask? So 5 point slow. All right. Should you ask to butt a neighbor's fence, or should you stay on your own property? I'm building a 6-foot privacy fence, and they have a 4-foot wire fence about 2 foot off my property line. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the easiest way would be to ask their permission. What I always do, though, is even if the neighbor says, yeah, sure, no problem, bring your fence over to mine. No sense having 2 fences 2 foot apart, right? I always still set a post inside your property line, and then I'll set another one 2 foot away at the neighbor's fence with a short section in between. The reason being, if you and that neighbor get along great and there's no bubbles, no troubles for years and years, and then that neighbor moves, and the neighbor that comes in maybe isn't the greatest neighbor in the world. For whatever reason, personality wise, you two clash. And then one day he realizes or she realizes that, wait a minute, your fence is on my property? No, you need to take your fence off my property. Well, now it's as simple as taking down that 2-foot section over to their fence. You already have a post set on your property line. Unfortunately, you would have to build a fence down your property line, but at least you'll be set up for it. You'll be prepared for that. Hopefully, the day that never comes, but something that we do for it. But yeah, ask permission. That's always the best way. All right, Ronald says, hey, Joe, I've learned a lot from your videos and still reference them for help. I'm in South Mississippi. That's right? MS? Yeah, Mississippi. Along the Gulf Coast, yep, and the wood lumber shortage is still going strong. Yeah, so the Gulf Coast region in general has obviously been hit hard lately, whether it's hurricanes or tropical storms. I wouldn't expect to see fence materials, available, not as specifically only there, but not specifically there, but I wouldn't expect to see fence materials there for a while, just because the lumber producers are, they have limited capacity as far as production. They only have so many people that work so many hours a day. And so they're going to be focusing their efforts more towards the higher margin items, which are going to be your dimensional lumber, probably plywood sheeting, that sort of thing, for rebuilding efforts and for preparation for future storms. Unfortunately, there's not enough production to go around. So I think they're seeing the same problems that we're seeing on the installation side, in that the labor force just isn't there for expansion. Honestly, this summer we could have added another crew. We had enough work to add another crew to just put more fence in the ground to try to keep up with demand, but the labor force simply wasn't there for one reason or another. So they're facing the same thing. All right, so check question at 12:19. Is that the one I answered? Yeah. Great.
Also, I think I want to frosty.
Yeah, so I just saw Wendy's jumped in the live. I love to see that. Recently built a fence in a very heavy clay area. I use metal 2 3/8 metal post and premixed concrete. When it gets hot and the ground dries, the poles become wobbly and loose. We get a little rain, they tighten back up. I went 30 inches deep. Should I have gone deeper? Is there any way to fix this? Help. Yeah, so 30 inches is pretty significant. See where they are? Heavy clay. So, actually this came up in a comment on another video this morning that I was reading through, talking about actually this almost the same thing where, in heavy clay or heavy sand areas, when it dries out, it cracks, and there's not a lot of moisture and the posts get loose. Yeah, I'd almost say you'd have to treat it like frost, in that you'd go deeper to try to get away from that. Because as I think this through, like, I always think about kind of taking it to the absurd limit, right? So even if you had, you went from 8-inch hole to a 16-inch wide hole, well, the ground's still cracking. It's not supporting that post. So you'd still have a loose post, which means, yeah, you would probably just need to go deeper. Now, how do you fix the post you have now? I don't know that you do. I don't know that there's a great solution other than pulling the post and digging deeper. But 30 inches, that's still a pretty significantly deep hole. So I would say you'd have to go deeper, because going wider doesn't really solve that problem, right? All right, let's see. Ronald asks, also, how much was plywood before COVID per 4x8 sheet? I needed 23-30 seconds for a workshop bench topper, and it was $35 each. Wow. Wasn't worth the price before the pandemic shortage. Yeah, that sounds high. I don't buy plywood sheeting on the regular, so I'm not really sure what it was before. I know, so on a 4x4x8 post was $8 and change, $9 and change pre-COVID. Now they're anywhere from $18 to $20. I would have to think plywood is probably the similar thing, and plywood might be might see more of a price increase, only because it's primary. It's primarily used also. It's a primary. What am I saying? It's a material used a lot for either hurricane preparation or hurricane rebuilding. So I would expect that price to stick around for a while. All right, Bob Sims, would you recommend installing Postmaster in concrete or with pneumatic post driver? So this question comes up quite a lot. Do you set your post in concrete? Do you dry pack in gravel? Do you drive the post? This question actually came up. So over the weekend, I was at the Midwest chapter of the American Fence Association's retreat, their meeting, and this question came up a lot after the meeting. A lot of us sat around and they had a really nice fire pit and sat around, had some drinks, and talked fence. And that question came up quite a lot. And it was almost 50-50 from guys that set in concrete and guys that drove the post. The guys that drive the post obviously drive them deeper. So they would use a 10-foot post, drive it 3 to 4 foot deep for a 6-foot fence, rather than setting it 2 foot deep in concrete. And they've been having success with this for years and years. One guy, that was how his dad showed him how he's installed fence forever. Back when they were selling chain link, they took the same theory, the same principle, and applied it to wood post. There's guys all over the country that I see either in comments here or in various fence related Facebook groups that drive, for 6-foot chain link, for 8-foot chain link, 6-foot wood fence. I think it's just as strong. It's going to be as a matter of how deep can you get that post to where it's in solid ground. So the question is, would you recommend installing it in concrete or post with a pneumatic post driver? My only experience is setting in concrete. That's how we've set posts for 3 generations. That's how I know. So I haven't driven them myself. Now, other fence companies I talk to drive all their posts and have great success with it. They have similar warranties. Our warranty is a lifetime workmanship warranty, and theirs is the same. And so the way I gauge whether it works or not is what's your callback rate, right? How often are you going back to try to straighten up post? And it sounds like theirs is similar to ours. They'll have 1 to 2 callbacks a month, which seems to be pretty common. So the answer is either. You can set them in concrete or drive them. But keep in mind, if you're driving the post, you need to drive it significantly deeper. Like I said, a 10-foot post on a 6-foot fence, drive it 3 to 4 foot deep, and call it a day. All right. Ron says he kept all the scrap pieces. Yeah, if you're paying that much for plywood, no matter where you are in the country, you keep every scrap. Nothing gets thrown away. It really reminds me now, obviously the situations are different, but my granddad came up in a day where you did not throw anything away, just unless its usefulness was 0%. If this thing had a little bit of life left into it, you found a place for it, you put it over there, and you left it because one day you might need it. So I think we're seeing a lot of that. All right, Luke says, I have a cedar fence along a busy street. Could I put a layer of outdoor soundproofing fabric along the fence and then put another layer of boards over the top? Luke, you could. The fence is probably 6 foot tall. It might be 8 foot tall. One thing I would be worried about is you putting that much effort into the fence and then realizing that the sound is coming over the fence. It's bouncing off of taller houses around you and coming into your backyard. Traffic noise is fickle. Would it help? Absolutely. I really think it would. So again, take the thought to the extreme. If the yard didn't have a fence, it would be louder than if it had a fence. So if the fence was thicker, it'd probably make it less noisy. But like I said, I'd hate for you to put that much work and effort into the fence and only to realize that the sound is actually now bouncing off of taller houses or buildings around you and still getting into your yard. I don't think you'll ever get to a quiet yard when you're up against a busy street, but couldn't hurt, right? So I don't know. Maybe try it in steps, rather than doing the whole thing. Maybe try the fabric, see if you hear a result before you start putting on additional boards and then capping it. I've never done it, Luke. I haven't tried it, but everything's worth a try once, I suppose. All right. All right. Grayson's in with us. What is up, Grayson? He says, hey, Joe, love how crisp your camera is. It's a Sony A6500. So it's a good camera. Sony makes good cameras. It's got good glass on it. I appreciate the compliments. But what I was hoping you're going to talk about the crispness is our new audio setup. So in between the last video and this video, we've got new audio, because some of the feedback we've received was the audio. So we were using a wireless lav system, or lav. I don't know how you pronounce that. And the audio wasn't as crisp. So I spent a lot of time on YouTube watching other interview style shows and what they use. So we got the Shure mics. We've got the Rodecaster Pro, I believe is the name of the mixing board. So I'm hoping the audio is crisp as well. So on all of our upcoming videos are shot here in the studio. This is the setup you'll see. So actually, that's a question I've got for you guys. Is so obviously you see the arm is in the shot now. Of course, the orange cables. How can you go wrong with that? And the mic. So it's a little bit different look too, right? It's not as clean. You know, it's got a little bit of mic clutter here. So what do you guys think of the shot? You know, have you seen shows that do the interview style a little bit differently that still have a microphone that you think might better suit us? What we've been kicking around is a tabletop stand mic where the microphone just sits on a tabletop stand. Maybe that works. So why don't you guys let us know what you think or shows that you watch that you'd recommend us watch and get a feel for it. I kind of like the setup just because it's easily moved. I don't have to worry about knocking the microphone around. It's just always right here. But yeah, let me know what you think. All right, Luke says, thanks so much. Really appreciate it and love watching your videos. Luke, I love helping out. I really do. As a person, I like being helpful. So this channel is right up my alley because it lets me be helpful in a field that I know quite a lot, that I've grown up in since I was a kid and learned from my dad, who learned from his dad, that sort of thing. So I appreciate you letting me help you. All right. Okay, Brent just got the Yeti mic. So the last YouTube broadcast actually that we were on, we had your Yeti mic, right, Jeremy? Yeah. And we actually got good feedback on that. So here's the thing with the Yeti mic is, so we've got videos planned upcoming that have me and a guest. So whether it's me and an insurance agent or a fellow fence professional and myself, where it's two people, you can't plug two Yeti mics into the computer. It'll only recognize one of them. So just a little background. So the way this whole situation is set up, so the computer runs through an HDMI cable into the computer, or the camera into the computer. And then this Yeti mic runs into a mixing board where we can have up to 4 mics, but with one cable coming into the computer. That way, because the computer will only recognize one audio device at a time. Yeah, so I'm not sure really how we got into that discussion, but yeah, so we got the Shure mics just because they seem to be the microphone of choice for either YouTube or podcasting, that sort of thing. But the Yeti mics are also nice. Jeremy uses a lot. You use a lot for your podcast, don't you? Yeah, audio is great on the Yeti mics. The limiting factor is you can have one. So that's audio with Joe, I guess. All right. Yeah, new segment. It's going to be a short segment because that is the limit of my audio knowledge. I actually watch YouTube for a significant amount of that knowledge. So it's funny. It's funny how much you use YouTube. I've spent quite a lot of time learning the Rode Procaster. Is that the name of it, the Procaster? It just says Rode on it. I think it's Procaster. Anyway, the mixing board. I spent a lot of time on YouTube. What's that? No, that's the audio driver. Anyway, it's funny how much we all use YouTube to learn all about new stuff. All right, so let's see. Eric Claghorn. So this comment was actually on one of our videos. The reaction video I did two reaction videos ago was about a post removal hack using a jack system. What happens when the concrete runs into the base of the jack? Great question. So, and it's going to depend on how large of a footprint that concrete takes up. So we watched this video, but also I'd watched several other videos using the same technique, using a jack and chain to jack a post up. And I've seen, so the jack ideally is straight up and down, 90 degrees with the ground, right? But I've seen guys using these jacks at extreme angles. Now it's not going to pull the post straight up; it's going to pull it at an angle. But I've seen them use them at pretty extreme angles. So, I mean, ultimately, you would move the base to where it doesn't hit the concrete. You know, you'd put down a 2x6, 2x8, something to where it'd have a good, firm base to rest on, and then jack it up using that. We actually use a tool. We ought to do a video on it, I guess. So if you can imagine one of those 2-wheel dollies that you would use to move boxes around, They're tall. Every moving company uses them, right? It's a similar version of that, a heavy duty version where the lip, the part on the ground that lifts those boxes up, is heavy, thick steel, and then it's got, this thing's probably 10 or 12 inches wide, and it has about a 10-inch cutout, half moon cutout in it to go around that concrete base, so that then it allows the concrete to come up through that cutout. There's systems out there built specifically for removing concrete, but if you're a DIY, and I understand completely, you don't want to buy this piece of equipment to do a project once. You could certainly, the jack doesn't have to be at 90 degrees to the ground, I guess is what I'm saying. You definitely don't want it on the concrete, because then it would absolutely defeat the purpose, which that comment came up quite often in that video about, what happens if there's concrete around it. I get it. You move the base of the jack out. So, all right, let's see. Brimage says, with YouTube University, I can do anything. That is absolutely the truth. There are some master classes on YouTube when it comes to anything and everything. There are guys that are doing phenomenal things on YouTube and making the education free for everybody. So it is unreal. Fishing and Picking says, any online retailer that will ship Postmasters to the East Coast? That I do not know about. So we buy ours directly from Master Halco. They typically have branches throughout the United States. They have branches on the East Coast. I've actually seen them in Lowe's. We've got 2 Lowe's here in Springfield, and I've seen them at both. I've seen the Postmaster post at both Lowe's. Now, that might be a regional thing, but so check your Lowe's, because if they don't have them, they might be able to bring them in from one of the regional distribution centers, make them available for you. And Lowe's typically does free ship to store. So if they have them at a regional distribution center, they can bring them into the store for free. You don't even have to pay shipping on them. Check with your local Lowe's. Ronald, what type of gate latch hardware do you all use? Here, Lowe's carries only one brand type, and Home Depot carries another brand and type. Just wondering if I should start ordering them online. So Ronald, next week's video. So we have a video coming out tomorrow, not tomorrow's video. Next week's video is going to be specifically on the hardware we use for gates. It's called Shark Latch and Shark Hinge. They're sold by Forney Fence out of Texas. But you're right. The Lowe's and Home Depot, they carry one brand and style, and both of them are fairly similar. We used to use a style of hinge, so you've got 2 styles. You have a strap hinge, which are 3 bolts all aligned. You have a middle hinge and then 3 bolts horizontal. You have another one where you have 3 bolts horizontal on the gate frame itself, and then you have 3 bolts vertically on the gate post itself. So when they're all horizontal, it's a strap. When they're aligned, when they're upright, it's my mind went blank. Strap hinges, I don't know, and the vertical anyway. So typically at Lowe's you'd see the strap hinges where they're all, and Home Depot has their own version of a strap hinge. We use something similar to that. We bought directly from Maristar Fence, made them. But the problem with those hinges is, even if you're using a steel post and a steel gate frame, you're still lagging this hardware into the 2x4s, both on the gate frame and on the gate post or on your fence. And you're relying on the lag bolts now to hold this fence up. Or if you drill through and you put a carriage bolt, you're putting all of your trust in this one, basically in wood, and you're hoping that it stays straight. And wood, as a natural product, isn't going to stay straight. So by using Shark hardware, you bolt directly from a steel post to the steel gate frame using steel hardware. There's nothing left to sag, warp, or twist. Again, Shark hardware, Forney Fence. I don't get paid if you go to them and buy from them, but it's what we use as a company. Lowe's latch kit is pretty good, but the Home Depot kit for small baby gates, not spring-loaded latches. Yeah, so if your 2 choices are the Lowe's and the Home Depot, the Lowe's latch is better. If in a pinch it will work. So if you're a homeowner building a fence, and this is your one fence, I would almost recommend probably going online and doing some research to see what grade of latches you can find online. These days you can buy all sorts of everything online. and not necessarily be stuck to one brand or style. But the style carried by Lowe's, I think, is a better latch than the one that's at Home Depot. So, all right. So, Jeremy, how are you going to pronounce that name?
That was just like a username, G Vannies, maybe.
All right, guys. So the name it's GVANYS. So I would have called it Giovannis, but Jeremy had an interesting point. Let's call him Gary. Now, who do we know? First name Gary, last name VAN. Is this Gary Vaynerchuk?
I think so.
Is this a secret code name?
I think it is.
Wink and a nod sort of thing?
He's shifting his industry focus.
Folks,
Something.
that or it's a guy named Giovanni. But I'm going with Gary Vaynerchuk. Just left us a question.
Yeah, no, that works.
Can't prove it's not him. That's why I say prove it's not. All right. So this guy or gal says, I have a line for the post marked with a total. I have a line for the post marked with a total of 34 holes, 6 foot apart. 2 holes I'm not going to be able to dig because there's a large root. What do I do? So when I first read through this before we started live, I really thought this was going to turn into a math problem. So 34 holes, 6 foot apart. If you're building, my question is, why are they 6 feet apart? Would be my first question. So if we're building a 6 foot privacy fence, 8 foot or less is typically the spacing. 34 holes, 6 foot apart, 2 holes I'm not able to dig. So it'd be better to see with a layout, I guess. But you could always play with your post spacings to make your posts not hit that root. So if they don't work at 6 foot spacing, but would they work if you had a 7 foot 2 inch spacing to where they don't hit that root, or with an 8 foot spacing? I'm not opposed to using longer sections occasionally, as in one per line of fence. A 10 foot section to try to span over it. But those fence posts are 6 foot apart. I don't like. I would rather not do a 12 foot section on between posts. That's going to be your weakest section of the whole fence. It's also going to be opening up. Even if you use cedar pickets, cedar rails, you're still giving that panel a lot of opportunity to move around. I would much rather you figure out post spacing to where those 2 posts don't hit that root. Yeah, that's what I'd prefer. I see guys that cut large tree roots. My concern is, does that damage the tree at that point? If it's a large enough root, that's probably a very important root to that tree. So let's try to make our post spacings to a point where they don't even come into play. That would be without seeing a layout, Gary. That's what I'm gonna do. But hey, reach out to me personally. I'd be more than happy to walk you through it. No problem at all. All right. Snappy JJ says, Postmaster vendors, what are my options? So Master Halco owns the patent to Postmasters. Master Halco is a nationwide fence wholesaler and manufacturer. They would be your first step. So if you're a fence company, you can set up an account with Master Halco. They can sell the post to you directly. If not, Lowe's often sells them. I've seen them at both of our Lowe's here in Southwest Missouri and Springfield. Specifically, if your Lowe's doesn't have them but has a product code available, they can ship those to their store from, say, another store or regional distribution center to get those for you. So either Master Halco if you're interested in setting up an account like as a fence company, or a homeowner can go to their Lowe's and request them be sent to the store, as far as I know. All right. Mario Ruiz, as a fence contractor myself, I'm struggling with CRM. What do you use? So CRM, everyone has their own name, I guess, for it. So mine is Client Relationship Manager. So where do we keep all the information about our clients? The fence work we've done in the past. We keep track of all sorts of things. Are there kids in the yard that we're concerned about keeping in, or are there kids in the neighborhood we're concerned about keeping out? Same thing with pets. Are we keeping pets in or out? Are there neighbors that we should know about? So the 3 things that keep a fence company in business, my granddad always said, were kids, pets, and bad neighbors. And that is absolutely true for probably 90% of the fence we do on the residential side. So you keep all the information in one source, and it's a CRM. We're actually in the middle of transitioning, or we're getting ready to transition this fall when things slow down, which let's talk about that when things slow down. That's something my dad used to always say. My granddad used to always say, well, in the wintertime, when things slow down. We haven't had a slow winter in probably the last 5 or 6 years. It hasn't got cold enough here in Southwest Missouri, but it's typically less busy than summer. So anyway, we use one right now. We're actually getting ready to switch to Job Nimbus, just because Job Nimbus does proposals, it does the CRM, it does the follow up with the client all in one software. Whereas right now, we use Service Monster, which is a great platform, but we use a different software for proposal. Nimbus. All right. Oh, we got some more questions here. So, all right. So Brent Mitch says, is there any fence that keeps the wildfires away? No. And you know that, right? So, I mean, maybe. So take things to extreme, right? So maybe 20-foot tall masonry wall that's like 12 inches thick. That could probably keep a wildfire away. Maybe. Well, a moat is important. You want to put a top on it though, because embers coming up over could be a thing. So you'd actually want to build a bunker around your house with a moat. The moat's important because that's a good fire break. Yeah. So go ahead and do that. Ronald, which is best for pickets? Exterior coated wood screws versus shank nails. So screws and nails comes up all the time. I drill 6 1 5/8 wood screws per board. Takes forever. Wondering if I should start using shank nails. Yeah. So we use ring shank nails. So currently we're using galvanized ring shank nail. Haven't had a problem with it as far as rusting goes, or any of the streaks you sometimes see on boards. But we're switching over to a stainless steel nail, probably first part of next year, the next season. We've got quite a few of these nails left right now, but as we run through the nails, we're probably going to replace with stainless. And really that's a perception thing. The galvanized ring shank nails, I've never had a problem with them rusting, in a 2x4 or in a picket. I've never had a problem with them bleeding out onto the pickets. Just as long as they're countersunk well, you never worry about that. But public perception is that stainless steel is the way to go. So we'll probably be switching to stainless steel nails just to keep up with public perception, really, and to set ourselves apart from our competition here in our market. So ring shank, don't be afraid to use ring shank nails. We use them all the time. The screw versus nail debate comes up quite a lot. We did a video on it. We probably ought to revisit the video later this year, but on screws versus nails. With screws, so my feeling was in that video was that there's not a great way to get consistent torque to those screws on every screw. I've since been informed by multiple comments that is actually very possible with the right tools. So I stand corrected. If you can say that you torque each screw to its exact specifications, then by all means. But to your point, it takes forever using screws too. So if we end up using screws, the labor price goes up significantly because it takes quite a bit longer, especially as you say, when you're pre-drilling the holes and then you set the screws. 6 screws to the picket is right. 6 nails to the picket is what we use on a 5.5 or 6 inch wide picket. But yeah, don't be afraid to use ring shank nails. Nanya Business says, why do they not make deck boards all the same width? Why at Lowe's, for example, or top shelf 1 inch by 6x8, not the same width of the bottom shelf 1 by 6x8? Yeah, so 1 inch is a nominal measurement. So if you ask them, so you could see multiple boards in that top shelf be different thicknesses as far as that 1 inch thickness. Typically what they'll say is, well, everything's rough sawn and it's a 1 inch nominal. And 1 inch nominal just typically means anything between 1/2 inch and 1 inch. And they're usually closer to 5/8. It just seems to be the way it is. Now the what do you call them? The bottom shelf the lower shelf boards, they're typically closer to the half inch than the inch, and the top shelf boards are typically closer to the inch. That's just how they get separated out. And so they charge more for the ones that are closer to 1 inch than the ones that are closer to half an inch, just because there's more board there. But yeah, so 1 inch is a nominal measurement, just the same as 6 inch. 6 inch is nominal. Lumber's everything's nominal measurements, right? So 2x4s are nominal. They don't measure, well, typically they don't measure 2 inch by 4 inch. I'm sure someone here has a 2x4 supplier that is exactly 2x4, but typically it's nominal. So typically it's 1.5 by 3.5. Nominal just gives them wiggle room as far as tolerances when they're cutting these boards. All right. And then it goes on to ask, on screws, will Camo screws stand the test of time on a horizontal fence? So I'm not familiar with Camo nails or Camo screws. Might be a brand name. So you'd want a coated screw. You want to look in to see what their warranty is as far as the coating warranty. When using a coated product, you want to make sure it has at least a 15 or 20-year warranty against rust and corrosion. My guess is Camo's probably a brand name. You just want to look into the warranty, make sure the coating's good, and then you're fine. Ron, my concern about nails in general is pulling during high winds and or hurricanes. Can shank nails hold the picket in under hurricane grade weather?
In wind, he corrected it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad Jeremy got that. I was like, and Zwingli. I'm not sure if he'll hold it up during Zwingli. I've never experienced that. Yeah, no. So ring shanks are perfectly strong. We've used them for quite a lot. Now hurricanes, is anything going to withstand a direct hurricane? No, but hurricane grade winds where the hurricane's a few miles off. I get it. So yeah, ring shank is a barbed nail where it's going to go and it's going to grab all the surrounding wood around it. I would think a ring shank nail would have just as much possibility of holding out long term as with a screw. That being said, I'd be super interested to see someone do some testing with screws versus nails as far as in a wind tunnel. I mean, I think that's where it comes down to. I think that's going to be the ultimate test is, put a panel up in a wind tunnel and do some testing. I don't happen to have one. So any of the testing, someone in my screw versus nails video, there was someone that said, well, this is purely conjecture. This is opinion. There's no data on this. And simply because I don't have a research facility capable of testing wind load ratings. To do that, you really have to have a wind tunnel, and I don't have one. So, but ring shank, I'm perfectly comfortable. We've been using them for generations. All right. How do you remove broken, rotted 4x4 fence posts below the surface set in concrete in truly horrible clay? So when a post is broken off at the concrete, where you don't have anything to grab onto, what we'll typically do is drill half-inch holes, use half-inch wedge anchors, and anchor a chain into that concrete, and then use a piece of equipment to pull it out. Typically, we'll dig around the post to release it a little bit from the as you say clay, and give you ability to pull this thing up out of the ground by using concrete anchors to anchor that concrete to the chain. Pull it right out of there. All right. Nunya says they have virtually no heads or little ones, and they screw in the corner of the board at an angle with a Camo tool. I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I haven't used them. I would defer to someone that has used them. Are the screws in the horizontal? Oh, are the screws in the horizontal boards behind us? So here's a funny thing. That's actually just fabric. So we'll know more in the next month or so, but we're probably going to be building a new studio. We're buying a building for the fence company that will have room for a new studio. We're not building a whole thing. But for that one, we will actually be putting wood boards behind me. This is a lease studio, so no permanent improvements to it. But yeah, so it's just fabric background. All right, Edith, hello from sunny España. Hello, Edith. Welcome to the YouTube. I appreciate you tuning in. Fishing and Picking says, any crazy customer stories? Oh, we don't have nearly the time. Jeremy just wrote up there, there's only 5 minutes. Each story is at least 20 minutes long, right? Yeah, I'd rather not say. Yes, the answer is yes. I think everyone has crazy customer stories. Yep, None of Your Business says a rock bar with extension pipes. He's talking about prying the concrete up out of the ground. Absolutely would work. That would be a fun and educational video. Stress testing wood screws versus nails. Thank you so much for answering my questions. I'm a newbie in fencing. Glad to have you, Ronald. I see you very much as a seasoned professional. I've done it since I was a kid. As a kid, I did not nearly appreciate it as much as I do now. So I learned from my dad from a young age, who learned from his dad at a very young age. Just the fencing world, how to build fence, how not to build fence is probably a better thing that we've learned by taking down old fences, that sort of thing. Yeah, good job on the fence. Thanks. Bought it on Amazon, stretched it up, worked like a charm. It actually looks pretty slick. I'm looking at it on the screen here. I wish you guys could. So obviously the camera's focused on me, but if it focused on the screen, this thing is actually really detailed. Like you can see all the grains in the wood and everything. It's pretty slick. Amazon special, baby. All right. All right. Edith says, gracias de nada. Do you charge for service calls? Depends, Brent. So, the question typically is, did we install the fence? If we did, what's going on? If it's a labor, if it's a workmanship issue, no. We cover our workmanship for life. We have lifetime workmanship warranty. If a car drove through the fence, yeah, we're going to charge for that. Service calls. If it's not an issue that we caused, then yes, we do charge for service calls. You have clients that want horizontal fence with no nails or screws shown. What do you do? No. So it's not a fence that we install. So even with horizontal fence installed on the Postmaster post, you're still going to see fasteners, because let me think this through. So the posts are covered. So you have all of your fasteners up your 2x4s bolted to your Postmasters in a horizontal fashion. You're still going to have your cover pickets cover up those posts on either side. You still see the fasteners there. You still see the nails holding those on to the 2x4s to cover up the pickets. No, I mean, it probably wouldn't be a fence that we would be a good fit for. Part of running a successful business is know where your limits are, know what you're good at. So does it sound similar to something we do? Absolutely. But cooking a hot dog sounds a lot like cooking a hamburger, and you can't buy a hot dog at McDonald's. Go ask them. They don't do it. Now, they got the grill. They cook meat. They've got buns. Could they cook a hot dog? Probably. But McDonald's, Wendy's, etc. know their limits in that they cook what they cook. Their offerings are their offerings, and they know that they're not a good fit for whatever reason at cooking hot dogs. I view it the same way. We're professionals at the styles of fence that we're trained in, right? That we have training. We know how we can build them in a professional manner, efficiently, so that we don't have to charge an exorbitant rate to the customer, and we know where our strengths are, and we stick there. So, no, building a fence without exposed fasteners probably wouldn't be something that we would be a good fit for. All right, guys, last call. So Jeremy has erased the time left. We're actually 5 minutes over time right now, but that's okay, because it's better than 2 hours. 1 hour and 5 minutes is better than 2 hours, right? So give you guys a couple minutes here. Pipe in with some questions. Let's see. Yep, you're welcome. Nanya. No problem. So last question. We'll wrap up with. I'll give you guys last call in the comments, and while you're doing that, because I know there's a delay, I'll read Celia Weston's question. How would I retrofit the Postmasters into an existing fence to replace a rotten 4x4? would I need to replace the cross beams as well? So you can retrofit a Postmaster or a Lifetime, the Postmaster style post, into an existing fence. The problem is you're not going to be able to hide it. So you could turn that post around to where the flat flange goes up against your existing 2x4s and screw through the post into the 2x4, and it would do a great job of holding that fence up. The problem is you're going to see it. So as long as you're okay with seeing the post, yeah, you can use it to retrofit, and you don't even have to replace the 2x4s. If you truly wanted to hide the Postmaster, that old post has to come out, and you likely would need to replace your 2x4s because the Postmaster post is smaller. It takes up less horizontal space than a 4x4 post would. So your posts are going to likely end up being a couple inches short on each side and simply not fitting. So if you wanted to hide the post, you would have to take out the old post, take out the 2x4s, and basically set one new post and rebuild 2 sections of fence if you want to truly hide the post. But it is possible to retrofit as long as you're willing to look at the post, as long as you're okay with seeing it. All right. So Ron says, I just watched a video with the Camo tool. It guides the screws at 45-degree angles on the corners. It's used for deck flooring, but I saw it used for horizontal fences. Awesome. It sounds good. So, obviously they've done the research at the strength of that screw and holding the 2x material up at a 45. So it's essentially toenailing it to the to the structure behind it. I'm sure they did research on it. I haven't used it. I probably won't use it. I can't think of an instance where fence that we normally install would be installed better or more efficiently using a toenailing type method. But there's tools for everything out there, guys. All right. Have a great day, Joe. Enjoyed your show. Thank you, Brent. I appreciate you joining us. So before I started doing YouTube videos, I was following Brent Mitch. This guy, Brent, why don't you type your channel in the comments? So Brent goes diving. He does scuba diving. He takes people out diving, spear fishing, that sort of thing. He does lobster fishing. Obviously, he's got lobster opener coming up. As long as you're okay with a little profanity. So I'll just put that out there. Great channel, and you guys ought to watch it. I enjoy watching. I live vicariously through Brent because I'm in the Midwest. We don't get to scuba dive here much at all, especially not in nice warm waters chasing awesome fish. So thank you, Brent. I appreciate you. Like I said, drop your channel with a caveat here that there is language in the channel. Yeah, Fishing Big wants to know who's buying lunch. I think the first person that asks it. I think that's the rule. Whoever asks it pays it. That's the rule I just made up. I think it's a good one. Then he says, I use 180 pounds of concrete for each 4. That probably means 4x post. How much you use? 80 to 120 pounds. So if we're using a standard bag of concrete, it's 80 pounds. 120 pounds on our gate posts. On a privacy fence. Corner posts on chain link fence get more because they're holding a lot more stress. On a wood fence, that stress is shared evenly throughout the fence, so 80 pounds is sufficient there. Gate posts obviously are holding up weight, so we're going to put 120 pounds on our gate post. I've been using the tool. Okay, so Nunya's talking about the Camo tool. He's been using the tool. It's difficult to use on horizontal fence. I think I'm just going to screw the 1x6s on from behind the fence. The side of my client cares is inside your yard facing. So the one tricky part of that though, Nunya, is that that 1-inch picket isn't 1 inches. Again, we're talking about nominal, right? So that 1-inch picket is probably going to be closer to 5/8. You'll want to be really careful screwing through. I understand what you're talking about, back nailing or back screwing. So through the 2x4 into the picket, you're going to have to be really careful not to go through the outer edge of that picket. It's going to be really easy on something that's 5/8, or even if you found a true 1-inch picket, it's going to be really easy to poke through. Honestly, I would say you'd almost be better using a 2x material, 2x6 or 2x8. I've seen a lot of horizontal fences built with 2x6, 2x8. You'd have less likelihood of poking that screw through to the other side. just be careful. Share your experience with us after it's done. I'm always willing to learn new ways. So if the camo tool is the way to go, then by all means, we'll test it out and see. Let us know how your fence goes. The community tabs on our YouTube channel is a great way to interact on a day by day basis or a week by week basis. Of course, you can always leave comments in our YouTube channel. But the communities tab is a great place. Can they leave? We talked about this before, Jeremy. Can they leave pictures there? I don't know that they can.
Yeah, I know we can, I think.
Yeah. So if you can leave pictures in the YouTube communities, that would be a great place to do it. If not, our Facebook page, I know for a fact you can put pictures on our Facebook page. And facebook.com/The Real Joe Everest is my public page. My private page is private. Let's talk about that for a second. So I get a lot of friend requests on Facebook from people who I've never met before, ever. And I have a feeling it's probably folks that see me in the Facebook groups and the fencing Facebook groups or here on YouTube. I have a public page that is Joe Everest, and it's me dressed in all of my orange. And it's very clear that that's a fencing expert page. So that's where I interact with people in a public fashion. I don't accept friend invites from people I don't know because that's where my kids play. And that's where we put pictures of my kids and my wife. And it's not fair to them to introduce them to people that they might not know and that I don't know. Not saying not necessarily saying you're crazy, but there are crazy people in the world. And there's not a good way for me to distinguish between the two. So I have a public and a private page. The Real Joe Everest on Facebook is my public page. All right. Brent says, if you're ever out here, let me know. I know. We talk about this all the time, is when you're going to come out to California and go diving, because, man, like I said, I live vicariously through Brent's videos, and I want to. I would love to meet Brent in person. So here's the crazy thing. So Brent and I met on PlayStation, playing games on PlayStation. And we've never actually met in person. We talk a lot on the phone. We text back and forth. We obviously talk on each other's YouTube channels. Never met him in person. Brent, I'd love to meet you in person. So I'm gonna have to figure out how to get out there to California. Typically, the only time that I'm in California when I'm there for conferences, and I'm in and I'm out, and I need to figure that out. I need to figure out a day in the middle to where I'm not worried about flying after diving. But I need to come see you. I know it. So. Yeah, so Nunya says that's the one thing that YouTube needs to fix or update, the ability to share pictures and memes. I agree. I understand it's a video platform, but in the communities tab would be much more useful if my community could share pictures and videos back with me. Just a thought. So for now, for pictures and videos that you'd like to share with me, facebook.com/The Real Joe Everest is a great place for it. Jeremy, let's put that in the comments too, if we can drop the link for the Facebook page. All right. Oh no. Well, never mind. Nunya said he's been or they've been banned from Fascist Book for posting out of shadows, Facebook rejects, Patriots now use Parlor. Not super familiar with what that means. I'm not sure about Parlor. So, well, I'm not sure how to share a video with us then, Nunya. Yep. So Facebook and YouTube are just kind of where we live. Jeremy's going to drop a link below, maybe. He's going to try to. He's giving it a shot right now. Actually, can I type here? I can type.
Yeah, I'll do it, but link it, but I don't know where to share.
Well, so it jacked up the URL. I'm not sure what does it show you. Do you guys see the comment I just left? So it's facebook.com/The Real Joe Everest, but the Joe Everest is red. So I don't know. Who knows? So YouTube probably doesn't want us linking people to other websites. Is probably exactly what that is. But so all you need to do is copy and paste that URL into your browser, and it'll pull up. Let me verify that. Make sure I got it right. Hold one. Bear with me.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it. Just see. Paste and go. Yep. copy that, paste in your browser, brings you right to me. All right, guys. It is now 16 past the hour, so we've gone a little bit longer, but not as bad as 2 hours. So we still got a little bit of day left. Jeremy and I are going to do a little bit of behind the scenes YouTubery. And yeah. Okay, Ronald says it looks normal on his end. That's weird. So on my end, it shows a regular link for facebook.com/thereal. But then my name, Joe Everest, all in one, it's in red for whatever reason. Anyway, copy and paste in your URL. It takes me to my Facebook page. You can drop pictures and videos as long as you're not banned. And yeah. So, guys, now, Joe Everest, the fence expert. I want to say thank you guys for coming to our second ever YouTube live. I really think like for the next little bit, these are probably going to be a monthly occurrence. The last video, we did a poll on weekly versus monthly, and weekly was kind of the feedback. But when we're looking at our workflow here on putting out normal videos, recorded videos, not that this isn't normal, the workflow for weekly YouTube's lives gets a little crazy. So for now, I think monthly YouTubes is going to be a thing. It'll probably be like it is today on a Tuesday. Tuesdays are typically our recording days. So we record videos on Tuesdays, and then they go to editors and all that. And then we post them usually a couple Wednesdays later. Wednesdays are normal uploads for recorded content. And for now, Tuesdays will be our live content. And we'll try to do them once a month. What's this, the last Tuesday? Yeah, this is the last Tuesday of the month. Maybe that's a thing. Maybe it's last Tuesday of the month. We'll keep you guys up to date. Check in with our communities tab. If you guys don't already subscribe to the channel, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell, because I believe when you do that, you get notified when we post to our communities tab. So we always post a couple times before a live, a few days out, 1 day out, the day of, that sort of thing. Reminding you guys that we have a live broadcast coming up. So if you're subscribed to the channel and you hit the notifications bell, YouTube will let you know when we post in the communities tab. If you don't, completely fine. Just check in from time to time, and we'll post it there. Or check out our Facebook page, because we also post on our Facebook page. All right, guys. Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors. I appreciate you sticking with me. Have a great day.